Breaking news tonight and breaking now. We have brand new, just released messages from anti-Trump FBI lovers Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Now, the Hannity investigative team, we have dug deep into these texts. We will expose exchanges between Strzok and Page that others are not talking about. And two blockbuster memos are now proving that the FBI, in fact, lied to a FISA court in order to spy on the Trump campaign. Now, the unredacted Grassley-Graham document is now showing that the phony dossier made up the bulk of the application to obtain that FISA warrant. Now, there are a ton of details, and they will take your breath away tonight. We will explain it all. Also, Sarah Carter tonight reporting that the Uranium One informant met with congressional staffers and gave explosive testimony about a Russian criminal enterprise operating right inside the United States. This is before the Uranium One deal. Now, Sarah Carter will join us along with the informant's lawyer, Victoria Tunsing. But first, we get to tonight's breaking news opening monologue. All right, brand new tonight, we have even more text messages from Trump-hating FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Now, Senator Ron Johnson has put out a report that is raising questions about President Obama's potential involvement in Hillary Clinton's email investigation. Now, during a September 2nd, 2016 exchange about creating talking points for former FBI Director James Comey to give to President Barack Obama, Page writes, POTUS wants to know everything we are doing. All right, so what exactly did President Obama want to be briefed on? Now, sources close to Strzok and Page, they're telling the Wall Street Journal tonight that this message they sent doesn't have to do with the Clinton email probe and instead was talking about possible Russian interference in the election. So, in light of the new Strzok text, well, we need to know, what investigation did Obama want to be briefed on? It's why tonight we have two very simple questions for Barack Obama and, frankly, everyone else involved in this scandal. Take a quick look.
What did the president know, and when did he know it?
All right, that was Senator Howard Baker. That was during the Watergate investigation, asking very important questions that President Barack Obama and others now need answers to. They got to answer to everybody. We did reach out to Obama's spokesperson. We didn't get a comment from all of them. And by the way, shocking. Also tonight, there's a new batch of text messages that was just released from the Trump-hating FBI lovers, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. It highlights their investigative bias and, of course, their continued hatred of Donald Trump. On August 9th, 2016, Lisa Page writes, well, he's not ever going to become president, right? Now, their hatred for Trump only grows from there. On November 3rd, 2016, only days before the election, Page wrote, well, the New York Times probability numbers are dropping every single day. I'm scared for our organization. Now, the Senate report notes this is likely a reference to the New York Times election forecast, which showed Trump gaining ground at that point in the election. Then on Election Day, November 8th, 2016, Strzok then says, oh, my God, this is blanking terrifying. And the next day, Strzok follows up with a, oh, my God, I am so depressed. And a few days later, on November 13th, here's what Lisa Page texts. Pay close attention to this. Well, I bought all the president's men. I figured I needed to brush up on Watergate. And the following day, Page writes, God, being here makes me angry. Lots of highfalutin security talk. And meanwhile, we have our task ahead of us. Okay, what task are they talking about? Now, Strzok and Page also called Trump an idiot, lonesome human being, talked about their insurance policy in case he won. So clearly they were abusively biased towards now President Donald Trump. And here's what's very important. Peter Strzok, and to an extent Lisa Page, who was Andrew McCabe's legal counsel, they're at the center of everything in all of this. Now, Strzok was a former top intelligence official at the FBI and signed the documents, remember, to start the Russia investigation. And Strzok also played a key role in the Clinton investigation, even interviewing Hillary and helping James Comey write that exoneration months before the investigation. And, of course, by overseeing the interviews of not only Clinton, but also General Flynn. And by the way, he's the one guy who helped put the fix in, one of a couple. And that allowed Hillary Clinton to remain in this presidential race. Otherwise, very likely, if it was a fair investigation, she probably would have been indicted. And a new text message proves that on September 28, 2016, Strzok says, got called up to Andy's earlier, who we think is Andrew McCabe, hundreds of thousands of emails turned over by Weiner's attorney to the SDNY, the Southern District of New York, includes a ton of material from Spouse. That means Uma Abedin sending team up tomorrow to review. This will never end. Here's why this is important. According to reports, what's in the upcoming DOJ Inspector General report we expect next month is what caused Andrew McCabe to abruptly resign at the end of last month. And the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the FBI officials, top officials, including McCabe, they knew about Uma Abedin's emails that were found on Anthony Weiner's laptop in September of 2016, but they waited for at least a month before alerting Congress. Now, that text message provides very key proof that's showing that Comey, McCabe, and others, they literally sat at a crucial moment on Uma Abedin's emails that were discovered on Anthony Weiner's laptop. Now, the question is why? And what took them so long to notify Congress, which they should have done? Now, the IG report is due out in the spring, probably in March, and hopefully those questions will be answered. Now, there are also other text messages from Strzok and Page that are raising a lot of red flags tonight. On May the 19th, 2 days after Robert Mueller was named the special counsel, Strzok was talking about joining the investigation with Mueller, and Strzok asked Page this question: an investigation leading to impeachment? Why are they talking about impeachment? Now, keep in mind, during that same text exchange on May 19th, 2 days after Robert Mueller was named special counsel, Strzok says, well, you and I both know the odds are nothing. If I thought it was likely, I'd be there, no question. I hesitate in part because of my gut sense and concern that there's no big there. So Strzok knew from the start that Mueller would be carrying out a witch hunt pretty much. There's also new revelations about former Attorney General Loretta Lynch and her involvement in the Clinton email cover-up. In June 2016, Bill Clinton infamously, remember, meets with Loretta Lynch on the tarmac in Phoenix for 40 minutes, which caused Lynch to say on July 1st she's stepping away for the investigation and she would just accept the FBI's conclusion. Now, keep in mind, all of this is before Hillary Clinton was ever interviewed by the FBI. So after Lynch's statement that she was taking a back seat, she would go along with the FBI, and James Comey, the same guy that she said, don't call it an investigation, call it a matter, Strzok then writes to Page, oh, timing looks like hell. And Page replies, yeah, that's awful timing. And then Page later adds, it's a real profile encouraged since she, Loretta Lynch, knows no charges will be brought. By the way, they hadn't interviewed Hillary yet. And 4 days later, Comey holds his press conference right after they interviewed Clinton, and that was Strzok's interview, and they let Clinton off the hook. So Page, Strzok, Lynch, Comey all knew that Clinton wouldn't be charged, and the Obama administration, in fact, was rigging it, and the fix was in. All right. Also tonight, even more evidence that the FBI lied to a FISA court using that Clinton bought and paid for dossier to spy on the Trump campaign. Now, last night, we explained in depth about the unredacted details in the Grassley-Graham memo. Here are the highlights if you weren't with us. Now, the phony dossier, in fact, did make up the bulk of that FISA application. And in March of 2017, James Comey, he briefed Congress that the FBI used the dossier in a FISA application because they thought Christopher Steele was credible. So Comey, he just trusted Steele. Why bother verifying it? He didn't. Now, the FBI only vaguely referenced the dossier's political origins to the FISA court. So what they were doing was hiding the fact. They didn't tell the FISA court judge in their application that that dossier that they didn't verify was bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton. Now, the senators also accused Steele of materially misleading the FBI. Now, Steele was working on a second dossier. Remember, we told you last night, and he, in part, this takes the cake, was being fed information from the Obama State Department and Clinton cronies, Clinton associates. Wow. So they're giving, literally, Clinton's friends are giving Steele some of the information he's using in that phony dossier, but the rest of the information came from the Russian government. Remember? He was saying the government was the source for the phony dossier material. Now, Steele was briefing several mainstream media outlets, these lies and propaganda, in the summer and fall of 2016 about his first fake news dossier. And according to British court records, Steele talked to reporters, let's see, from the New York Times, Fake News, Washington Post, Yahoo News, New Yorker, and, of course, the whole network, Fake News CNN, at the end of September 2016 about the dossier. And we previously uncovered that Fusion GPS co-founder, remember Glenn Simpson, he actually testified to a congressional committee that the Clinton campaign and the DNC were very aware that his company was contacting media outlets. They were energy and uranium market industry for the FBI, met staff members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, House Oversight, and the House Intelligence Committees. Well, that all happened earlier today, where he gave explosive testimony on his years as an undercover informant, providing information to the FBI on Russian criminal networks that are operating right inside the United States. He also contends in his testimony and his written briefs that the FBI, that Russia attempted to hide their ongoing aid to help sustain Iran's nuclear industry. At the time, the Obama administration, in fact, approved the sale of 20% of U.S. Uranium mining rights to Russia. Now, we did reach out to Hillary Clinton for a statement. Her spokesman called the informant, quote, a charade and a distraction. Here with more, Fox News contributor broke this story. Sarah Carter, lawyer for the FBI informant, Victoria Tunsing. We've got to put this in context here. He worked for the FBI many years, and then he worked in particular, if I'm not mistaken, Sarah, 6 years on this particular case. Oh, I'm sorry, Victoria, you're shaking your head.
Yes, he was introduced to the FBI, and they immediately sent him over to work with the CIA, which he did for about 15, 20 years. And then when he got involved in the uranium and Russian places, the CIA turned him back over to FBI counterintelligence.
So he finally testifies today. Sarah, I want to go to your full report, but I want to remind everybody of important facts here. We don't have enough uranium in this country. And before the CFIUS sign-off, the 9 separate agencies signing off on the Uranium One deal, they knew that Vladimir Putin had operatives in this country that wanted to get a foothold in our uranium industry, and that they were involved in bribery and racketeering and kickbacks and money laundering and all sorts of behavior. They knew all of this even 18 months prior, and they still allowed this to go forward. Tell us what you can now break open tonight.
Well, I think that's important, but what's even more important, Sean, is that they knew that the Russians were still double dealing with Iran. This was the biggest concern for the Republicans at that time. This is the reason why they didn't want the Uranium One deal to go through, and they were screaming mad about it. But everybody tried to assure everyone that Russia was no longer, and the Russians themselves, they were lying about it, that they were no longer dealing with Iran on their nuclear reactors. But at that time, William Campbell, the informant, was actually providing information, and this was months before, that Russia was still dealing with Iran. And this is a major issue. So despite all the information that he provided to the FBI and to their counterintelligence unit, the Obama administration chose to ignore that and move forward with the sale of Uranium One, which was the Canadian mining company.
And the more important point is that he tried to tell people and warn people specifically about everything that was going on. And he was told and has proof and evidence that, in fact, the response was, well, it's not going to be a problem as long as Hillary's in the administration, then as Secretary of State.
Yes, I mean, this is exactly what he was testifying, and I know Victoria will be able to speak more to his testimony today, but this was what he was testifying to those committee staffers who were questioning him, that the Russians were consistently bragging about their relationship with the Clintons and that they would be able to move this through the Obama administration without any trouble. And I know that that's something that he really wanted to bring forward. Look, he's been suffering from cancer. He had his second bout with a cancer diagnosis, and he believed that he wasn't going to make it, and he wanted to ensure that his information became public, and this was the only way he could do it.
All right, Victoria, you were there the entire time today. This is your client. We've been waiting for this testimony for a long time. I know you've had to sift through years of information. What was the reaction, if you can tell us, of these committees, number one, and number two, if you can explain the why it never made sense to allow, when we knew Vladimir Putin's, he had a band of supporters in the country that wanted to get our uranium, and then they're still doing this with Iran that Sarah is mentioning. How could this ever happen?
Let me take you back to 2005, because that's when this really started, the Russian plan to take over U.S. uranium piles. That was when, guess what, Bill Clinton, former president, and his multi-gazillionaire friend, Frank Giuffra, traveled to Kazakhstan and bestowed all kinds of praises on the dictator there and ended up, oh my surprise, with uranium mining rights. And it was then, my client is told, that the Russians begin to plan strategically how they could take over uranium, particularly in the United States. And one of the key elements of that plan was to get this CFIUS approval to buy uranium-1. It all started in 2005. Yes, and
why didn't they listen to your client? It sounds like he was dumbfounded. He had all this information. He's in the heart of it. Sees all the corruption around it. He knows, I assume, that we don't have enough uranium resources on our own. Why didn't anybody listen to him?
He's telling the FBI agents, that's who he's supposed to be working with, and he's telling them about the strategic plan of Putin to take over the uranium industry, and he's writing up these reports and telling them about it. He's also telling them about the corruption in these companies. That all of them are, they're all the one company, even though they have different names. But they were so confident, Sean, the Russians, that they told Mr. Campbell that with the Clintons' help, it was a shoo-in to get CFIUS approval. And they were so confident in that they even had him open up a new office, because they were planning on the kind of business they were going to do as soon as CFIUS approved it.
And also, Sean, Victoria brought up a really good point, and your question, he did approach his FBI handlers. He asked them, why aren't you doing anything about this? Why aren't we arresting people now that we know this is going on? Why is this, uranium-1 deal still going through? And what he was told was, this is all politics. This is about politics. And that's what his FBI handlers told him. So take it from there.
And the FBI director at the time, Robert Mueller, did he know about this?
We don't know. He was Mr. Campbell was told by the FBI that he was being told, and they were taking it upstairs. And he was also told that the President Obama had it in his daily briefing twice. When he was asked today, when Mr. Campbell was asked today, so why did you do all this for so long, and you were losing money and you were sick? He said, because I'm a patriot, and that's what I believe.
And then we got to take everything back to the money, and then the kickbacks, and then the connection to the Clinton Foundation. We're just out of time. I want to thank you both. We will stay on this story as well. It's unbelievable. All right, joining us now with reaction to all tonight's breaking news, she is the host of Justice, Judge Jeanine Pirro. Look, if you look at our top stories tonight, there's a part of me that can't believe all this is happening. So we have the Grassley-Graham memorandum, unredacted, that comes out last night, literally minutes before we start the show. In this, they're saying this dossier is full of Russian government lies. They don't say lies, but Russian government sources, Russians. And then we learn that there are Clinton sycophants also feeding Michael Steele. Now, it's bad enough that they're using the dossier to feed to a liberal media that doesn't do any work or fact-checking on their own. But then it gets even deeper, is that Comey and others use this as the bulk of information, unverified, Hillary Clinton bought and paid for, Russian propaganda full of salacious lies, to get a FISA warrant against an opposition party candidate to prevent him from winning, and then when he does win, to try and unseat a duly elected president. I don't even know where to begin with the law here.
If you were to write a script for Hollywood, even they might think that this was a little over the top. But you see, Sean, the frustration that I have, and so many Americans have, is that as we keep hearing these pieces of evidence come out, we say to ourselves, why isn't anything being done? Or is something about to be done? Because as someone who's tried criminal cases for decades, what you do is you put together the pieces of the puzzle. And now we know that President Obama, shock, lied to us when he said, I'm not involved in anything involving the FBI and the DOJ. No investigation am I involved in. And of course, you've got these two FBI lovebirds.
Do we know what that text message specifically said?
Sean, it's September of 16. Comey had already closed the Clinton emails in July of 16. So it's either about the setup that they were doing to set up Donald Trump, or someone was saying it's about a meeting with Putin. But here's the bottom line. The president-elect was directly involved with the FBI in identifying their investigations. Now, when she says he wants to know what we're doing, he's not sure. He doesn't want to know about their sex life or that they're having an affair. It's about what they're doing at work as it relates to the FBI. And every trial is a puzzle. The pieces of the puzzle are coming together. And Strzok has to be indicted. McCabe has to be indicted. You've got a lot of people right now who are right on the brink. And, you know, you want to know, what did this president know?
On the brink of, finish that thought.
We're on the brink of indictments coming down. Look, I'm glad Congress is looking into this. I'm very happy. They can make themselves happy. And make no mistake, if it weren't for them, we wouldn't know half of this. But I want a prosecutor looking into this. I want a grand jury impaneled. I want subpoenas. I know the Inspector General is coming out with his report. And as I understand it, there are a lot of FBI agents calling me.
Who would likely be the targets of this investigation? This is an important question.
What is the question?
Who would likely be the main targets of this investigation?
FBI. Strzok, McCabe. I don't know why Bruce Orr is still working. Lisa Page. And there's an interesting character, Priestap. He's a guy in this hierarchy that no one is talking about.
What about Comey?
I want to know, Sean, is why is no one talking about him? Is he so clean, or is he cooperating? What's going on?
Judge, what about Comey and Rosenstein?
It's too soon for them yet. Comey needs to be the target of an active criminal investigation. I've said that a million times. Comey lied to the American people. Comey should have been fired the day after he decided that he was the Attorney General.
What about Hillary Clinton?
Well, if the statute of limitations hasn't passed, go for it. Or how about you start looking into the Clinton Foundation?
Wait a minute. They fixed it. When they were writing their exoneration before investigation, it was rigged. And everybody knew that they were rigging it.
That doesn't mean you cannot reopen it, Sean. There's only double jeopardy
but
if
they
you've been
rigged it so she could stay as the candidate because they thought that she would win and become president. And even Strzok and Page were afraid, oh my gosh, if she wins, she might get mad at us at one point. But then the more important thing is, who knew? How did they possibly take unverified information, withhold from a FISA court judge that it's Hillary Clinton bought and paid for? How do you withhold that kind of information when seeking something as sensitive as a FISA warrant?
Well, you withhold it very simply. Let me explain something to you, Sean. A lot of these FISA judges, people think FISA judges are picked, that they're special for the secret court. No, they're district court judges. And there's something called forum shopping, where someone decides, I want to get this judge or that judge. And maybe if you look at the number of FISA warrants that are approved, it's like 97%. Come on, does that sound like a rough?
Utterly silent. Here's the reaction. Founder, managing partner, Skybridge Capital. I'm sorry, Anthony, I'm not Bill Maher. You're not on a liberal show tonight, all right?
Hey, there were Republicans attacking me, Sean. It wasn't liberals. That's the crazy part about it.
That's actually true. You take heat from all comers.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And the author of The Smear, How Shady Political Operatives and Fake News Controls What You See, What You Think, and How You Vote. The anchor of Full Measure, Cheryl Atkinson, is back with us. All right, Anthony, to me, I think Joe DeGenev is right, and I've been saying it. This is the biggest corruption scandal in the history, perhaps, modern-day politics. It is so makes Watergate look like stealing a Snickers bar.
The problem with it, you're calling it that now, but we still got another 10 layers to drill into and rip off more skin. And so once you get really, really deep, Sean, it's absolutely uncontrollable. And so what's going to happen now, they're going to make a pincher movement. You should read the manifesto, the best-selling book by Cheryl Atkinson. She'll describe to you what they're going to do to everybody. They're going to flatten up everybody, dehumanize them. They're going to try to criminalize the process of finding out the criminals. And it's a nightmare for the American people. But I'm glad you're exposing it, Sean. You're doing a big service, a patriotic service. And you're protecting the president who honestly won the election despite all of this nonsense that was happening in the politicization of these agencies.
In many ways, Cheryl, you have been a victim of all of this. It was almost a year ago on this program, we broke the story right here with Sarah Carter and John Solomon, who've done phenomenal work about how, yeah, they got a FISA warrant against Donald Trump. Donald Trump tweets out that, oh, they wiretapped me, and the media went crazy. Turns out everything and much more, we've been literally unpeeling layers of an onion here with real facts and information. The media's gone with a story about Russia-Trump collusion with zero evidence for a year, and they, by omission, don't cover these stories. Why?
Well, just to amend one thing, I don't know that they had a FISA warrant directly on Donald Trump. I haven't seen evidence that they did. They may
Carter
have
Page
used
in the Trump. Right. Go ahead.
They may have used warrantless techniques. There's all kinds of ways. I was told even before Donald Trump announced for office that Intel officials, and I was told this by insiders, have sometimes been using bad information to bring to the FISA court to wrap up other people that are the true targets that they can't get a warrant against, but to wrap them up in incidental targeting different ways without maybe a direct warrant.
Isn't that what happened to General Flynn, based on what we know? Isn't that what happened to poor General Flynn?
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, I think from what we know in news reporting and what we've learned since then is that they, under the auspices of listening to a Russian official, the ambassador from Russia to the United States, they then accidentally captured somebody who may have been allegedly their true target and someone that they hoped would lead them to mischief.
The bottom line is you've got one presidential candidate that pays for a phony Russian dossier. None of it's verified. And she's also, Christopher Steele's being fed from Clinton's own associates. Then they don't tell a FISA judge the facts of who bought and paid for this phony dossier that's unverified, and then it's used to get a FISA warrant. And you're right about incidental unmasking and leaking raw intelligence. And the media, for the most part, there's been a blackout. Isn't that true?
I think there has largely been a lack of curiosity and a lack of accurate and thorough reporting on one side of this issue. There's been plenty representing one viewpoint, but very little on the other side, except to the extent that it debunks. And I think that part of the reason for that is there is a much bigger scandal under the surface, and some people know this, which is, in my view, not that they were going after President Trump perhaps during the campaign, but why? Because unlike what they thought would happen if Jeb Bush were elected or Hillary Clinton, there are some inside the intelligence community who've been there for more than one administration who feared that Donald Trump could bring in people who would peel back the layers and see the allegedly improper and illegal surveillance techniques they've implemented for a long time.
So
deep state, Anthony Scaramucci, deep state gate.
Yeah, but I mean, my question to the American people is how much longer are we going to tolerate this? My question is also to every one of us out there that see this happening. How do we deal with these people, Sean? Because Cheryl, myself, and you all know how ruthless they are, how diabolical they are, and they'll stop at anything to stop honest people from uncovering them.
Well, you mean like what Chuck, well, Anthony,
yeah, exactly.
What Chuck Schumer said, they'll get you 6 ways in Sunday, and what this guy on fake news CNN saying, they're going to win?
Yeah, exactly. That monster on that was saying that we're around for 100+ years and you're around for 13 months. This is sort of nonsense. The American people have to understand that their government is there to serve them. We are not here to serve the people that work in the government. They are our servants, and they need to be held accountable for the nonsense that's going on right now.
Last word, Cheryl Atkinson.
Well, I think there's much more to come, and we should be looking at the big picture, not necessarily all the minutia that distracts us.
All right, guys, thank you both. Mooch, good to see you. Welcome back, my brother. We appreciate you coming on. Cheryl, good to see you, too. When we come back, time for a video of the day featuring America's least favorite lovebirds. Video of the day, we compare the real-life Joe and Mika, Dr. Joe, Dr. Mika, Liberal Joe, and their Saturday Night Live counterparts. Take a look.
You know what? I think you're right. You're always right, though.
Can the Trump administration figure out whether Bush and Obama...
Have you ever not been right, sweetie?
Oh, God, don't do that. No, that's a no. That's a no.
We just crossed the line.
We just played that song live last night at Prohibition. Mika was there.
I come because I have to.
You come because I tell you to.
What, do you think Noah gave you that ring? Oh, yeah, we're engaged.
Andrea, what do you think about North Korea?
You're a steak Florentine gal.
Yeah? You gonna feed me my meat? Because you're a dirty dog?
You know I am.
I promise.
We'll be right back.
I promise we will not make you uncomfortable anymore. Okay.
Don't.
That is so creepy. And anyway, it looks like sometimes reality is really better than fiction. All right, time for the Hannity Hotline sound off.
Hannity, this is Rocky again from California. You know, the state you hate, of course, we hate you too.
Sean, you're a disgrace to everybody who ever was born on Long Island.
Oh, I'm a disgrace to everybody. All right, if you have something to say, let not your heart be troubled. Just right there, 877-225-8587. All right, unfortunately, that is all the time we have left this evening. Let not your heart be troubled, because standing by to continue with the news, I got to get your opinion on Joe and Mika. Is that creepy or weird or what?
What? Oh, what, Sean?
Oh.
You're always
Hello,
right.
Laura Ingraham.
You're always right. You're always right. You are.